I don't know if there is another word in the English language that is loaded with as much violence and back history as the N word. I did a little bit of research, but like you got words that are thrown around that have a lot of weight, like the F word and stuff like that. But the N
Mhm.
word is loaded with so much vile. Uh, let me. I don't know. Let's
No,
talk
tell it
about.
like it is.
Oh, let's
Because
let's
what
talk
you
about
were,
it
yeah. Well,
because
I mean, just
is there a difference between the GA version and the hard R? What do you think,
no,
man?
no.
You don't think
So
so?
no, but well, okay. I have a theory about it though. Like it's derived from it's still derived from the same word, and you can put connotations on things that sort of lessen the blow depending on what the context is. But the origin of the word is where the problem comes from, man. So it's always
Yeah,
going to be. This is my opinion, man. It's always going to be attached to that trauma, and especially if you ever experience it yourself. Like when I was young, I experienced it as a name calling thing.
yeah.
So it kind of always kind of triggers that in me.
So the GA in like that urban slang of GA. Like it's not something like I grew up in a black neighborhood,
Mm,
and that was something that wasn't thrown around, right?
yeah,
The urban slang of GA.
right.
But I listened to the music. You
Hmm.
know, back in the day, I remember you were into Diggable Planets and all that, and Tribe and stuff like that. I was into some serious gangster rap, man.
Oh, I remember. I
Back in the
remember.
day, right? So the GA was thrown around in that. I never spoke a lot of the GA, but I
Yeah.
listened to it. You know
Yeah,
what I
of
mean?
course. Yeah. Well, I think it's also just my opinion too. It was also a time when the word we kind of claimed it.
Yeah.
It kind of came into the mainstream in a way through music, and hip hop was that up and coming stuff that was starting to
Yeah.
break on through the commercial side, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then everything becomes a gimmick. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah. Yeah.
you claim it, but really, you almost become like I claimed it as well when I was growing up. I put
Yeah.
humor into it because I heard a lot of different comedians using it, like Richard Pryor and
And Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy,
Yeah.
and then it was also coming up in
Mm.
music and hip hop, and then you saw it on television. All of a sudden, black culture started to come in, where
Yeah.
In Living Color was sort of insinuating
Yeah.
race and the N word and everything like that. But it's like we claimed it in a minstrel way.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
still entertaining, and it's still attached to
It's still
all those
attached to the root.
things.
Well, let's talk about that too, man. Like the actual, as with all words, they derive themselves from somewhere. So um from what I've seen online, its roots are Spanish and Portuguese. And originally it was just like a descriptor, like telling someone that they had blue eyes or brown
Yeah,
eyes, or
yeah,
telling someone that they were short or tall. So it
yeah,
was literally just a descriptor,
yeah,
like the original root,
yeah.
right? Word. So I think it was weaponized during North American slavery.
Of course.
It was weaponized during North American slavery. And I saw this quote that kind of wraps it up all in a neat little ball. And it's from Maya Angelou. And she said, the N word was created to divest people of their humanity.
Mm.
So it was thrown as a weapon and used to, it's almost like uh calling someone a dog or something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Back in
yeah,
those days.
yeah.
So that's the origin of it, and it was weaponized. Yeah, the GA versus the hard R thing. I was talking to Keela, my daughter, the other day, and we were talking about that. And I think North American Black people did kind of, like you said, reclaim that as urban slang, but it's still a curse word.
Hmm.
So it has its place, I think,
Yeah,
and it does have its. There's certain music that I listen to that still has it, and
yeah,
so it has its place. So but then the hard R doesn't have its place anywhere,
yeah. No, it
and that's
doesn't.
that's the difference, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
hard R is still a word of hate,
yeah.
and it's still a word that's thrown out as a weapon, right?
Hmm.
That's the difference.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, that's what you kind of have to discern, because at the end of the day, it's a word, and it
Mm,
will be a part of our, you know, language, and it is a part of our language. So, you know, um, it's just something that you kind of have to sort of find your peace with in how it's used, I guess,
yeah,
because it is such a part of our daily thing.
yeah, it's
You're
interesting.
gonna hear it all the time, right? You kind of have
Yeah,
to shut yourself off from it. But once you know the context is different. But
yeah,
like I said, it can still bring up a lot of things, especially depending on how it's used.
yeah. You mentioned that it has a lot of like things that has to do with your upbringing and stuff like that. But I can't remember. I can remember the two instances that it was actually thrown at me personally.
Hmm. Yeah,
Right, I was
yeah.
walking in Bedford, and someone up in a balcony just yelled it down, and I wasn't upset or anything. It was like, what? Where'd that come from?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
I kind of chuckled about it. And
yeah.
the other time was up here in Toronto. And it wasn't really directed at me.
Hmm.
Like some dude, some white dude was walking down the street throwing the word around, but
Yeah,
the hard R. So he was weaponizing the word. So I
yeah.
swung around to confront him, and he was surprised at my reaction.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are the only two times. Like literally, I don't know if I've been fortunate or it's kind of weird that that's the only times I can really think
Yeah.
about that, man.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw it a lot sort of when I was a young kid growing up. And it
Yeah,
was a bit of a residual effect of the times, probably.
yeah,
And, by the time I got acclimated with school and started to have a social circle, it was used by some kids, but they were usually kids that you didn't hang out with that was in your circle. And I grew up in a mostly white neighborhood, and, I experienced it, but that was also the time when I kind of flipped it and reclaimed it and made it into a funny joke. I became a
yeah,
character. So
yeah.
that was the way I was able to deflect it, because I
Deflect.
was like, they're going to use it. I'm going to take it and I'm going to spit it right back in the face, spitting it at them. And they loved it because it was like, oh man, this guy's funny. And then I
Oh man.
became the funny dude. Right.
Yeah,
So, so when you sort of break it down to a simple science, you know, especially with some of the stuff and topics that we're dealing with on our podcast, it kind of makes you always look at the trauma aspect of it as well, which
yeah,
always makes me decide, you know, I would probably never get comfortable with the word. I've used it. I
yeah.
I've never used it actually in any of my poetry or songs that I made,
Uh-huh.
because it's like that's not a name I need to throw out there. I might
Yeah,
have used it in a slang type of way to make fun of something, like the GA instead of
yeah,
the hard R. And like you said earlier, man, it's a weaponized word. So it will always have that hold on us until it doesn't.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. For sure, man.